This Black History Month, we salute the legends of the past. People like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Thurgood Marshall, Majeska Simpkins, just to name a few. They created a legacy that gives each of us voices. So News 19 is kicking off what we hope will be a nod to our future. It's a series of reports called A Seat at the Table, where we will amplify the voices of Black people affecting change in our community today.
Each has a name that isn't necessarily widely known, but they have worked, struggled, and persisted to create a space for themselves and help others. You might say they were looking for a seat at society's table, and where they found none, each created a space for themselves. As we introduce you to these trailblazers, our intent is to spark conversation that leads to greater understanding of why inclusion is necessary and representation matters. These are the story of those who are carrying the baton and who are working to make our communities better. Like civil rights activist James Felder, who has dedicated his life to serving his community and breaking racial barriers.
We were furniture in the room. They just ignored us completely. After 2 weeks, one of them would slide up beside your desk. Jim, can I get you to sign on as a sponsor on this bill? And after that, it opened up.
Then there's Deon Jameson. He was recognized as South Carolina's 2023 Teacher of the Year, making him the first Black man to earn the title.
I feel an incredible responsibility to ensure that our Black children across the state are seeing teachers that look like them. For me, I just believe that I'm just getting started.
In 1979, legendary Hall of Famer Willie Jeffries became the first Black head football coach at a Division I, predominantly white college. And he later became the winningest coach in South Carolina State University football history.
We keep talking about this glass ceiling, but yet it's being offered and the glass ceiling is still there for African American coaches at a Division I school. I said someone has to take it.
And we bring you the story of Estelle Young, whose commitment to create safe, equitable communities for all led her to becoming the first Black female captain of the Columbia Police Department.
White neighborhoods that you went in, they would give you a hard way to go. They would call your names, you would knock on the door, police, and sometimes they would get on the telephone, call the dispatch, and say, I don't want a Black officer responding to my neighborhood.
Hear about how her work as an officer, captain, and community advocate has cleared the way for many to follow. This is A Seat at the Table. The life of James Jim Felder has been defined by service. He served with the Army's Honor Guard Ceremonial Unit in Washington, D.C. He served as a pallbearer for assassinated civil rights leader Medgar Evers. He also served as the leader of the casket team for President John F. Kennedy. His selection to serve with the prestigious Honor Guard represented only the 10th Black American to be a part of this unit. And this would not be the last time Felder would be one of the first. From Arlington Cemetery to the South Carolina State House, this civil rights legend has dedicated his life to breaking racial barriers and making sure all people have a seat at the table.
1968, in South Carolina, you're going to see Negroes participating, running for offices as they've never done before. I ran the voter education project for 2 years. We registered over 200,000 Black voters in that period of time. And then I got drafted by Ms. Simpkins and others to run for the legislature. It wasn't a job I sought. They drafted me, they drafted I.S. Levy Johnson also, said, you boys we're gonna run y'all. I said, okay, I don't have any money. I said, I don't have it, we'll raise the money for you. And they did. They raised the money for I.S. Levy Johnson and I to run, and we won.
So what was it like working in the State House at that time?
It was like we were furniture in the room. They just ignored us completely. just for the first 2 weeks. For the first 2 weeks, they wouldn't speak to us or brush past you, just ignored you. Now, except for the Columbia legislators, Isidore Lewis, Alex Anderson, our local guys who helped us get elected. After 2 weeks, one of them would slide up beside your desk. Jim, can I get you to sign on as a sponsor on this bill? And after that, it opened up. Yeah, we were speaking, talking, having drinks after work and all of that.
Do you think we're more divisive now than when you were in legislature?
Yes. What happened in South Carolina, like in some other states, the parties became more divergent. They failed to cooperate with each other like they used to do. They became red and blue. Became party loyalists over people and over their districts and what have you. And that has continued, but that has been going on now for the last 25, 30 years. But prior to that, there was real camaraderie.
You went to visit the State House with your class, but could not go inside because Black people weren't allowed inside the State House. Right. Fast forward a couple of years later, and you are one of the first Black men elected to the South Carolina legislature after Reconstruction. What a full circle moment. I know that had to hold a lot of weight for you.
Well, it did. First of all, it didn't bother me initially because I was happy to be there. But then when people would call or come by the house or come by the office, and when they talk about how proud they were, then it began to settle in. And I said, well, I got to do a good job if I'm in the public eye here. But again, it still comes back to Sumter and the leadership that was here. I can't overstate that. I had great mentors who were civil rights fighters all of their lives here from Sumter. And so I had no choice but to get involved. My civil rights situation started across the street over here at Mount Pisgah AME Church, 1953. I'm 14 years old, Jim Cliburn is 13 years old, and we joined the NAACP Youth Council. I was able to help more people in that job than any of the other things that I've done.
Did you feel pressure stepping into that role?
I did because the Black community said, oh, you're going to have to sending us to jail. And that ain't right. Why you took that job? But after I was in it for a while, more people started coming to the courtroom just to observe than ever before. They want to see who this black guy in the courtroom. But it worked out. After a while, they realized that I was going to be fair and fair to the law and fair to them also.
What would you like our generation to understand?
I'd like for them to learn our history. When I came home to do the voter education project in 1967, we only had 8 Black elected officials at that point and 50,000 registered voters. Today, we've got over 1 million registered voters in South Carolina. We've got 928 Black elected officials in South Carolina. Our problem today is turnout, getting us out to vote. We could change things, but we got to concentrate on votes. We're only turning out 53, 54, 55%. And that's not just in the Black community, that's the white community also.
We want to hear about James Felder as a husband and a dad.
Married my high school sweetheart. We met here at Lincoln in 1953. She's a librarian. She finished Bennett College in Greensboro. And she went to Bennett because I suggested to her mother to send her to Bennett so that she wouldn't have to deal with the boys, all right? And her mother did. She hated it here.
Oh, goodness.
And I went to Atlanta where there were all the girls.
Mr. Felder!
I did that. Have 2 children, Adrian and Jimmy. Jimmy's in the military also. 3 generations of military in my family. My dad was World War II. I'm Vietnam era, and Jimmy was the Afghan in that era. My daughter, she's a Clemson graduate and she's an engineer. And I have 2 grandboys.
What do you think is your greatest accomplishment?
Well, I'd like to say this museum is it. Yeah, I've been on the edge of history, and I had a front row seat in a lot of historical things. I'm on my 5th book now, trying to preserve our history and the people who made that history.
In May, Deion Jamison received the honor of being recognized as South Carolina's Teacher of the Year, making him the first Black man to earn the title that's been recognizing excellence in education since 1956. Born and educated in what's historically been called the corridor of shame, he's seen education as the key to overcoming adversity, and he's seen educators be the key vehicles in changing lives. He's looking forward to impacting the lives of students all across South Carolina over the next year. This is a seat at the table.
Our South Carolina Teacher of the Year for 2023, Deion.
What did you think in that moment?
I remember everything at the gala up until that point. But it was a very surreal moment. I did not go in expecting to get this far. I didn't even expect to become like a district teacher of the year, let alone a finalist and then the winner. But I just saw it as like a testament to the hard work that I have put in into my classroom and investing into my students and into my community.
5 years into being a teacher, you now hold the historic position of being the first Black man to be the South Carolina Teacher of the Year. 5 years into teaching. Is this your calling?
I would think so. I'm very spiritual, and I was raised in the Baptist church. And my grandmother made sure that I was in church every Sunday, every Tuesday, every Thursday. And by me going to church so much, I was like, oh God, I'm going to be a preacher. So I would pray, and my prayer would be for the Lord to use me in my profession, which is in education, and allow me to lead that way, because I think that's the way that I could reach way more people.
What is your prayer for your students?
That they will live in a world that is much better in the one that I've grown up in, that my parents have grown up in. It's a world that honors and recognizes everyone's humanity, regardless of what they look like, what they believe in.
You are who you are today because of what some might deem a school system that lacked in resources. What did it have to make up for that lack in resources?
And I attribute a lot of my success to my foundation, which is here at Lake Mary. We may not have had everything that we needed to be successful in comparison to other districts, but we knew that our teachers loved us. I think about 2 words, joy and justice. I came to school and I always felt as if there was joy in the building. We had really energized teachers who were excited about their jobs despite the circumstances. You wouldn't have even known that there was a quote-unquote issue in the area by how pumped up our teachers were, and how excited they were about teaching and how excited we were about learning. And then justice, right? I think that our teachers took a really different approach in terms of teaching and learning here, and they ensured that we all got what we needed. And we know, our teachers knew that it wasn't like a one-size-fits-all approach, so they were able to give each student what they needed individually. And I think that's the thing that works in school districts that are underfunded. Statistically, I'm not supposed to be sitting in this seat talking to you because of the place that I grew up in. And I'm just one person that was able to quote-unquote make it out, right? But unfortunately, that's not the story of many people that are from this particular area along I-95.
Would you qualify yourself as a smart kid?
I think that I was a hard worker.
So Clemson University denied the current South Carolina Teacher of the Year entry into their education program.
That is correct. I believe that it was like due to a cap size. So I ended up majoring in sociology in undergrad, and I think that was probably the best decision that I could have made, because with that, I learned so much about inequities and disparities, especially here in South Carolina, and it was all applicable to me and my situation growing up. Throughout my academic career here in Orangeburg County Schools, most of my teachers were black women. What I did not have was a lot of teachers that looked exactly like me, so black men. So I wanted to be what my black women teachers were for me, for my students, but a male version of that. The research consistently shows that black students who have teachers that look like them, particularly black male students and black male teachers, they are more likely to stay in school, they're more likely to stay out of trouble, they're more likely to graduate, they're more likely to pursue a post-secondary education. So those 4 reasons alone are just phenomenal reasons to have black males into the classroom, but also the representation piece is extremely important. There's only 2% of black men who teach here in South Carolina and across the nation. As the first black male to be awarded the South Carolina Teacher of the Year, I feel an incredible responsibility to ensure that our black children across the state are seeing teachers that look like them. For me, I just believe that I'm just getting started. I believe that this is exactly the platform that I need and that my students need, that my community needs to uplift the amazing work that we're doing in underserved communities, and to really shed light on the inequities that exist, but also to shed light on the amazing possibilities that exist when you have creative educators.
Very few coaches in history have a resume that rivals that of legendary Hall of Famer Willie Jeffries. He was the first black football coach at a Division I predominantly white college, and for years he was the winningest coach in South Carolina State University football history. His life is an example of what it means to play offense and defense well, because the more he achieved, the more he had an opportunity to give coaches a chance to call plays when they otherwise couldn't. For Coach Jeffries, it was never about the X's and O's. His greatest play to date was a win and a seat at the table for every player whose life he touched. When you look behind you and you see Willie E. Jeffries Field, what do you think?
Oh, it's a great feeling to have coached here.
What does it mean to you to be the winningest coach in South Carolina State University history?
It meant a lot to me over the years that I was the winningest coach, but then for Buddy to pass it, it's still a great feeling. I feel like they're all mine anyway.
You know a lot about winning. What can you teach us about losing?
Win and not brag, and lose without excuses. So what I've learned about that is to congratulate the winner, and you learn. You really win by losing a game.
Let's talk about the history of being the first African-American football coach at a predominantly white Division I school when you were at Wichita State.
I knew that Wichita State was genuine in what they wanted to do because I was the third guy they contacted to take that job. When they contacted me, I thought about it and I said, we keep talking about this glass ceiling, but yet it's being offered and the glass ceiling is still there for African American coaches at a Division I school. I said, someone has to take it. If I were unsuccessful, they would say, black coaches can't handle this level of football. But we needed to remove the glass ceiling, and I took the job, and I'm so happy that I did. It was a great experience.
Even today, though, Coach, it's still less than 10% of Division I coaches across all the sports are African American. Why do you think more hasn't changed since you were at Wichita State?
I tell our graduates to be ready when opportunity knocks. It only knocks once and it never has picked a lock. People don't know they are looking for good young black coaches, but they must travel this route, I'm telling you, because there's a pool of coaches. In order to get into that pool so you can get selected, you must have gone through and have been a graduate assistant. I didn't plan to go into coaching. My degree is a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I wanted to bring a copy of my scholarship for football. $264 first semester, $266 second semester, $500 per year to go to school. And I needed it because we were poor. I mean, we had to put Kool-Aid on layaway. You know, I told you about that once before. I mean, we really didn't have, my dad died when I was 4. Mama never remarried, so we had it hard.
What do you know about coaching today that you didn't know on your first day on the job?
I was thinking about some of the things we used to do offensively, defensively, and how I thought I knew everything, and I didn't. I hired coaches that knew as much or more than I did, so that that could bring something to the table. And when they were successful, I highlighted that and they worked harder. And I always promoted from within. We never went out to find another coach. If one left, we'd hire one from the staff.
Who's your favorite coach?
Oh, I liked Eddie Robinson and Jake Gaither and Bobby Bowden. I love Danny Ford, and they're just a group of those guys. And Buddy Pugh, Buddy has done such a tremendous job on an anemic budget, but we all gather around and we help him. I'm most proud of the game when we defeated Delaware State in 1973 for our first MEAC championship.
As I sit here and try to do the math, you're 85 now?
85.
85 years old. Mind like a steel trap.
Well, my mind is good, and my first wife is she's 82 years old, and we're both healthy, and God has blessed us, 3 children and 6 grandchildren. I want it to be said that I left the world and our community, state of South Carolina, a much better place than when I found it.
Coach Jeffries, thanks for having a seat at our table today.
Thank you so much, and I've been watching it. I wanted a seat at this table. Thank you so very much.
Mom, advocate, beautician, accomplished law enforcement officer. Estelle Young has worn many hats in her lifetime, and her servant leadership started before the badge. She marched in downtown Columbia to integrate businesses, and with Dr. King in an effort to secure voting rights in Selma, Alabama on Bloody Sunday. Young worked with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and taught people how to read and write so they could pass literacy tests to vote. That same commitment to creating a safe, equitable community for all people led her to be a highly decorated captain for Columbia's police department, where she broke racial and gender barriers in law enforcement. This is a seat at the table.
The name that you call people and people call you. Tell me about Cuz.
Okay, because I came in contact with so many people, it wasn't possible for me to remember their name. So I just picked up this signature that says, okay, everybody can be Cuz. It just lasted, and I still do it today. Everybody's still my Cuz. And it's a nice gesture. It was great. Everybody knew everybody. They cared for each other. Good family relationships. And although many of the parents in the neighborhood, they didn't have high school education, but the encouragement was there. You just gotta do better than we did.
Okay, so how did you get your start in law enforcement?
I was a beautician. I used to do all the young girls' hair in the neighborhood. And one day I was looking out of the window on Washington Street. That's where many of the blacks' establishments were. And I saw this man just beating this guy unmercifully because he was drunk. It was an officer, and that's when I decided, okay, I gotta help make a difference.
What was your experience like, not only being one of the few females in the police department, but one of the very, very few black females?
Some mornings we went into roll call, and we had to hear a racial joke every morning. So eventually I just turned the tables. So sometimes I would beat them to the punch. And I think that's what helped me to endure. Then we had times when you would go on calls. The officers would say that I'm on the scene, and you, being a female, where are they? I've committed to this situation and I don't have any backup. Eventually they would come, but by the time they got there, the situation was resolved. White neighborhoods that you went in, they would give you a hard way to go. They would call your names, you would knock on the door, police, and they would call your names, and sometimes they would get on the telephone, call the dispatch, and say, I don't want a black officer responding to my neighborhood. I would always tell them, then if you don't want me, then you don't really need the police, because I'm the best thing they got.
What made you get up every single morning and choose to go in and put your badge on?
Changing the process and making a difference in the police department. And as I worked, opened doors, it made it better for the other females that was coming behind me. I made the community feel good all the time because I stayed in their communities. I worked in their communities. I knew the presidents of all of them. I'm here to tell you, I think I knew everybody in Columbia. and so everybody
like
was
it.
just happy when I got promoted because they knew I didn't go on the job to play. I did my job.
When you look back on your legacy, what are you the most proud of?
Making sure that other people would want to emulate what I've done. So my son's in law enforcement. My son and I were the first mother-son officers within the city of Columbia. My grandson is in law, my oldest grandson is in law enforcement, and I see a lot of young people in the community in other parts of the city who says, you were good police, and so we want to be a police too. So I guess my accomplishments rubbing off on other people, and I always have to say this, with our Explorer program that we had with the police department. Now one of the young men who was one of my explorers is now deputy chief, And I had about 15 other kids that was in the Explorer program who are now police officers, and they've made rank. So I'm just proud of the fact that they saw enough in me to want to emulate what I did.
At just 25 years old, Aisha Charles is making her mark across the state and country. Her talent is displayed on murals across the Midlands, and her unique style has garnered national praise, including from the NFL, BET, and celebrities. This self-taught artist and entrepreneur is not just creating a seat at the table, she's painting pictures of it, inspiring others to dream big and bold.
Where did your love for art come from?
I can say that it actually came from my childhood. It was self-therapy for me growing up. As things that I dealt with, whether at school or at home, instead of taking a negative route, art was my escape. It was my way of dealing with negative things in a positive way. When I was a kid, they literally just let me do anything. They couldn't afford to get me art supplies, so I would go outside and make paint out of berries. I remember grinding up a bunch of grass so I can get the color green, and I would just paint on like paper that I found in the house, and they still have that work. They would put my work out on the walls and just let me be me. Whatever I feel is just a release, and I can put it into my work. That's why when some people see my exhibits, they cry, because they feel the emotions that I had bled into those artworks through my hands, because it's a part of me. They are my children. So when people buy my work, you're taking a soul with you. And for me, it feels good to create that way. But for others, I just want it to honestly just make your soul feel something. I know a lot of people, they might go through life and know that there's not a lot of good. So when you see my work, I just wanted to spark an emotion, because if I made you smile for a second, I did my job.
A lot of your pieces speak to what's happening in society. Why is that important to you?
I feel like since you're here, you are accountable for your life, and it's really your experience. However you take it, you should do the most that you can with it. And since I have talent, I feel like it should be used. And when something touches my soul, whether it is political, whether it is for the community, I'm gonna do it, because I only get one life, and I'm gonna use my superpowers to help.
While you were painting Black Wall Street, little kids coming up to you and calling you their hero.
When kids come with their sketchbooks showing me their work, and I'll come down and be like, your work's better than me, and half the time they really are for their age. So I'm just like, y'all are gonna be the next generation. Y'all are the ones that are gonna carry the torch and move forward with art. And if I can be a light to show y'all can be something even bigger than I am, I'm gonna do it. And I know that Columbia can only grow and be better with more art and more love from kids being creative and being themselves.
What's the biggest barrier that you've had to overcome being an artist?
For me, I had to figure out, how am I gonna make money? How am I gonna do something like this? So I started going to festivals. I was the youngest ever at Essence Fest. I was 16 years old, and I was selling my pieces there. And it just gave me an idea of what I was supposed to do. And honestly, I had a lot of people telling me my work was art dust collectors. Like, it wasn't gonna make money, you're not gonna make it, but I just saw it as a way of saying, just because they didn't make it doesn't mean that it's your journey. You need to build your road, even though you don't know what's going to be on the other side.
As I'm thinking about your artwork, and just the murals are flashing through my mind, the pictures are flashing through my mind, and what I love so much is that I see Black and brown faces.
I feel like people get a lot more when they see themselves and not just others. And for me, people always say, is your work Afrocentric? Is it this? Was it that? I say my work is mine because it's just based off of my experience. I feel like it is very irresponsible for you not to just create things that are based off of what you know. I know my people, I know what I have, and all these faces are based off of family members, people in the community, and I've been seeing kids come up and be like, that looks like me, that looks like me, that looks like my cousin. That is huge to say that I can have a mural of myself up.
Speaking of how you're making people feel, the community, what legacy are you hoping to achieve through your art?
When you see my work, when you see everything that I've done in my lifetime, just know that anybody can do anything they want. It is up to you to make it happen. It don't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what cards you're dealt. It doesn't matter what you've been through in your life. You have to pick yourself up because the world ain't gonna hold your hand. I just want people to know, just live in your truth. Even if it's small, you're affecting a lot of people because we still need that. You don't have to be a huge muralist. You could be anything. I just want people to just follow their dreams and know that they can find happiness in that, even if they are in darkness right now. I am truly thankful for all the love that I've been receiving over the years, because if it wasn't for y'all, I would not be where I am, even though my creation of just finding my escape to joy has been able to spark more joy for others. So it has been a huge explosion of love, and I just thank everybody, because I don't get to say that enough.
God, family, church. Three of the most important things in the life of Dr. Sandra Glover, who for the last 2 years has been an advocate delivering federal aid to rural communities. There are more than 5 million people who call South Carolina home, and it's her job to make each one of them feel safe at home. Her position gives her a seat at the table, not one that she was looking for, but one that she believes she was born for. When President Biden tapped you for this position, what did you think?
I thought someone else, maybe. Certainly someone else can do it better than I can. All my life I've said my purpose was, and the plan, according to God, as God Family Church for me, was to give back, to think about those that are underserved, most vulnerable, distressed communities. And here was an opportunity to put it into practice, as opposed to writing the papers, publishing, and all of that goes along with academia. This is real world. This is really touching lives. And so I accepted the position. So it was not a part of my plan, but obviously part of the master's plan.
Do you believe your rural upbringing
Absolutely.
is the reason why you're so passionate about
Absolutely.
it? How did Sandra Glover grow up? Well, you weren't Glover at that point.
Sandra has been Glover. Four Holes community, right outside Orangeburg County. A little skinny little girl in the the heart of rural South Carolina. Four Holes. Went to school. Drove to Orangeburg to school. Felton Laboratory School, South Carolina State, 9 years. Left Felton, went to Wilkinson High School, now it's OW. But those years kind of really molded me. My parents were educators. They stayed in the rural community. Mother was an educator in Harleyville, Ridgeville, South Carolina. My dad was a principal in Bowman. But all of that was a part of our life. Our church was in a rural community. Everything that we did, we grew up rural. So I had the heart for rural. I had the heart to give back to the community that helped me get to where I am today. I don't think the average South Carolinian recognizes the hurt and pain that still exists in our rural areas. If we can't mourn for others, then we can't take action. I mourn. I mourn for those that don't have. It's not lifting one person versus the other. If we lift one, we lift the entire state. Resources in our urban areas should be the same resources in our rural areas. That's what I'm fighting for. And not the first African American to hold this position. We've had a number of state directors that have done tremendous work before me. They laid a lot of the foundation. A lot of the people that I'm working with now, they hired those individuals. And they had the heart and the passion for rural in a way that they knew South Carolina and they knew the needs of South Carolina. They knew the right people that needed to be in place to provide the services that in South Carolina, in rural South Carolina. We did some great projects my first year in this position, Rural Development State Director. But I still wake up in the middle of the night. Oops.
What?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Because there are people where their houses, the window panes are tarp. They don't have insulated window panes. They have holes in their floor. They have to sleep with the fear of something crawling in and in their homes. So that's what keeps me awake at night. We do great projects, we do large projects, and it's making a difference. But until we can make a difference in the life of every person in rural that's still suffering, and until South Carolina in totality can see that pain and suffering, we won't be able to see it the way I would like to see it. I feel like I've always had to have a folding chair. This is a real chair that we're seated in today, and I'm at this table with you, Darcy. But over the years, I feel like it's always been pulling of a folding chair, even when I was sitting in a real chair. Even this role is not for me. It's for those that come behind me. I have to be the voice for those that have no voice until they can find their voice and use their voice to make a difference in their own lives and the lives of others. I fight the hardest for those that are poor, that are lacking in resources, those that are unloved. There's so much need, Darcy. So I fight for those that can't fight for themselves until they can fight. I want people to be able to fight for themselves, help one another, love one another, serve one another, bear one another's burdens. That's what we're required to do. As long as I'm breathing, I'll have hope. And if I have hope, then I will act in some capacity.
Dr. Lewis Lynn, Clemson University Board Trustee, Order of the Palmetto recipient, owner of one of the largest landscape and construction design companies in the country. This Darlington native is the son of sharecroppers and was one of 12 black students at Clemson University when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. His life, his legacy, his career, grown from the same soil that he's using now to plant seeds of hope for others. Where some set their tables in boardrooms, Dr. Lewis Lynn has fertilized a career where his seat at the table begins outside.
Dr. Lynn, it is a pleasure to be at this table with you today.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you.
Just wrapped up the governor's prayer breakfast, and you were the keynote speaker today. When you reflect on the opportunities that have been afforded to you over the years, being the keynote speaker at the governor's prayer breakfast today, where does that rank?
Near the very top, because it gives me a chance. It gave me an opportunity to bring a word from the Lord to my community, and I was able to say some civic things, some spiritual things, but it just gave me an honor to bring a word from the Lord, and I felt like the Lord put all the words there.
When you reflect on your life and think about the things that you're most proud of, what would you say is your number one accomplishment?
Being a business person and being able to contribute to the economic growth of my community, but mostly to be able to give jobs to people. My business has allowed me to pay my civic rent, And civic rent means a lot of the contracts like this building, the hotels, the streetscapes, is like, I got paid by taxpayers' money. So it's kind of like I'm feeding from the public trough. If I feed for the public trough, I need to put something back in it. And that's paying my civic rent.
You're a modest man. EnviroAg is not a small business. When you think about your family history and coming from a family of sharecroppers, to now being one of the most successful black men in business, not in South Carolina, but in the nation.
Yeah, we made the Black Enterprise Top 100. So but again, it's a shooter for somebody. If he can do it, I can do it.
How do you go from that? How do you go from sharecropping to where you are today?
Education was the key, and my father used to say, and his father before him, is that education is the tide that lifts all boats.
Take me from being one of 12 black students at Clemson University to now serving more than 30 years on the board of directors.
So I bring diversity of thought and diversity of race and diversity of trade to the board, and I'm generally not shy about what if I have an opinion about it, I'm generally not shy about that. And that served me well.
What would Adrian, Brian, and Crystal say about their daddy?
Daddy has a lot of bad dad jokes. and I've been threatening to retire since 10 or 12 years ago, and I see them following my model in some of the things they do, but particularly the two daughters, they'll just say, Dad, you're failing at retirement. You had a, and I'm enjoying retirement, and the difference between me and you is you working because you got to. I'm working because I want to.
So since you're failing at retirement, is there another table you'd like to see yourself seated at?
No, my goal now is to bring others to the table, to share the experience, and again, to be sure that I didn't mess it up for the guys behind me.
You're an inspiration to so many people.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who still inspires you?
I'm kind of one of the old guys now, and our political guys, young and old, I have an affinity for politicians, James Clyburn, and even though Steve Benjamin, our former mayor, is a young guy, and that you're in a leadership role, and we the people need to support them. I've met every president since Bush, and so having access to the kings of our culture, and I know how the game's played, and like, why don't you look at Darcy for that? You got a board seat, why don't you talk to her? So some of it's what you know, but a lot is who you know. And it takes nothing from my candle to light somebody else's candle. If I can lend you some credibility, if I can open a door for you, or if I can walk with you in some circumstance, then again, it's my big thing in life now at this point is pay my civic rent and finish well.
It seems like you have been offering a seat at the table for your entire career.
And that's part of don't mess it up for the guy behind you. And then from every board that I'm on, as I've graduated or aged out, it's my goal has been, I want somebody who looks like me to replace me. I want to be sure that when we pass the torch, we've given them a fair shot at winning the race. Your deeds will either sustain your reputation or devastate your reputation. I'm in the stage of life now that I want to finish well.
At the end of the day, when someone says Dr. Lewis Lynn, if they were to finish the sentence, what would you be pleased with the back end of that sentence saying?
Is a good guy.
Williams-Brice Stadium to a bronze bust at the Saints Hall of Fame. George Rogers' football legacy is celebrated by fans young and old. This proud husband and father is a Heisman winner and Super Bowl champ. He's in the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame, the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame, and the Georgia Hall of Fame. His honors only outmatched by his record-setting rushing yards. Rogers is proof that a humble beginning in a small town can produce a big name. This is a seat at the table.
Take me back to the beginning. Where and when did you discover your love for the game?
When I first got in the game. The coach said, okay, we're gonna put you in the game. He put me in the game, and the quarterback came out the huddle. He said, down, set, hut. He threw me the ball. I seen all them guys coming toward me. I threw it right back to it. They knocked me down, they hit me. I didn't know they were supposed to hit me now. They knocked me around and stuff. I got up off the ground, I was wobbly, and went back to the sideline. And he said, get him out of there. I was like, and then all of a sudden in practice, I learned how to play the game. Wow. And what makes it so bad is the next day, when we had the next game, the coach wouldn't even let me play. And he said, I don't want him to play because he don't know how to play yet. I said, I do know how to play. I do know how to play. I was crying. I do know how to play. And he said, okay. We're going to put you back in the game. The girl, they gave me the ball and they hiked it to me and he pitched it to me like that. I went down that sideline. I was gone. I ran till there was no more grass left. I turned around, my friends, my teammates coming to congratulate me. I started dodging them too. I didn't know what they had. They said, boy, you just scored a touchdown. That's the end zone here right there. And I said, oh, okay. And from then on, it was touchdown city.
And here's Rodgers for the first down.
Did you feel a lot of extra weight or pressure after you won the Heisman?
No. I've always been the same guy. Whether I played with Carolina or I played with the Saints or with the Redskins, I'm playing to win. I ain't on nobody's side but my team, and that's the only way you can be. And most of the time, I was on the right team. We won. We won more games than we lost. I do know that.
Running back George Rodgers of South Carolina.
I don't want them to regret that they picked me or nothing like that, but I probably have about a 3-year contract, so if I hadn't produced in 3 years, I'd be glad to leave.
Is there something that you wish people knew about, or a question that maybe you wish somebody asked you in an interview so you could say, hey, nobody knows this about me, but I want to talk about this, or I want people to know this about me?
It's probably when I was going through bad times, and the only thing I can say about that is, you got to live your life. And I was living my life, and I was making some mistakes, and you're going to make some mistakes. The good thing about it is a lot of people don't have a second chance. I've got a second chance to change some of that. And I'm sure if I didn't, I probably would have been dead too. So, in choices that you make sure that you make good decisions, because sometimes they can take your life. And I'm just so fortunate that I'm still around and I can talk to my kids and tell them not to make the same mistakes I made.
It's all about growing.
That's right, that's exactly. My mom, I'm just glad that she had a chance to see me doing the right thing instead of seeing all the bad things happening.
What do you think is the biggest lesson you learned during that time?
Don't do it again. Don't do it again, man. I'm fortunate to be around better people than that now. It starts with the people that you're around. If you can get out around them, then everything will change for you. Well, because I knew how hard it is for other kids that didn't have the talent of playing a running back or something like that they can be smart, get their grades up, and I wanted to have the George Rodgers Foundation so I can give people scholarship money so they can go to school. And I did. And I've been doing it for almost 31 years now. This will be my 31st year coming up.
What are you up to right now? Like, what does this season of life hold for you?
I like to go fishing. I go to Greenwood, and they got a pond. And girl, I go up there, and I don't care what time it is. I go up there and I sit up there for hours.
Is it peaceful for you?
Oh, girl, what you talking about? Hot too. You better have a hat on their head. I guarantee you that. It is hot.
What do you see when it comes to similarities between the team that you played on when you were here and the team now, if any?
If I had to say anything about the way South Carolina play now, I would say they got great running backs. Quarterback has been a decision to make every now and then, but the offensive line is doing a pretty good job, and our defense played well. So how are they losing? They ain't scoring more than the other team. That's the reason we lose it. But they got good aspiration out there. I think this year gonna tell a lot about South Carolina.
I tell you what, the Clemson-Carolina rivalry really is the best. Like, I love
it. It is. But you know what though? I'm ready to beat them now. It's time for them to cut it off. It's time to stop, boy. It's time to stop that thing. This year, y'all gonna get it. Y'all gonna get it. Y'all gonna get hit right upside the head.
It's not happening. It's not
Boom,
happening.
upside the head. Bam.
Karen Jenkins is a picture of success, an award-winning entrepreneur with a nationally recognized business, an author, a highly sought-after motivational speaker, a community leader, and most importantly, a military wife and mother of two. Most recently, she was named the chair-elect for the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. While her journey to the top has not been easy, her resilience, faith, and servant leadership have allowed her to create a seat at the table for herself and others.
I promise you, when you do what you're supposed to do, and you do it in the right light, and you do it in the right mind, you will be blessed beyond measure. And I can say I'm blessed beyond measure. And for me, it's not all about money. My blessing is helping other people. You know, when I can help somebody, when I can watch somebody else grow and prosper, you couldn't pay money for that.
You will be the first African-American woman to serve as the chair of the Columbia Chamber of Commerce. Yes. How does that feel? What does that mean to you?
It's humbling. It's very humbling because I had no clue. It was not a plan. It wasn't anything that I ventured out to, oh, yeah, that's what I want to do. Again, from having that servant leader mentality, one of my mentors, Dr. Lewis Lynn, shared with me years ago that you have to pay your civil rent. And that means that we all make it in our world. We have money, we have kids, we have family, but we need to contribute. You need to give back. I'm a member of Vistage. It's a CEO roundtable group. I am the only African American there. I am one of two women, but I tell you, those guys welcome me. And I just, again, as women, and as African Americans, we have to present ourselves in a way that you have to put yourself out there. There are risks, right? If we're staying to ourselves and we're not letting people know who we are, then the only way that they know who we are is what they see on television. I can promise you, I'm not what you see on TV. I am me.
What many people don't see are the barriers and the challenges and the obstacles that you have to face to get to this position. What were some of those obstacles and how do you overcome them?
I don't focus on the barriers. If you focus on the barriers, you can't get the solution to move into the direction that you want to go in. We went to the hospital, and about 20 people, 20 of our family members in one little small room. And I said, if there's anybody in here that has any doubt that my child will get up and walk out of this hospital, I need you to leave the hospital now. Because you're about to interfere with my energy, and you're about to interfere with my prayers. I don't need any counteraction going on to what we're doing. And when I tell you we went to praying, my baby was at the University of South Carolina going part-time, August of 2017.
Incredible.
He is a senior this year. So when I tell you God is great and God is good, when I tell you that when you focus on the positive, when you give the universe, when you give God your thoughts, they're going to give them back to you.
So this positive mindset and the success that you have had in business, How did you get here and who helped you get here to this place?
So it's been a community. You know, I grew up in the Greenview community. And one thing I'll say about that is it's different now, but I went to Greenview Elementary School. I went to what was Fairwall, and then I went to Keenan. And I went to school with people I went to school with from 1st to 12th grade. So we had I can't tell you which reunion it was, I don't want to date myself, but we had a reunion this past summer. And it was phenomenal because these people are my family, right? So when I look at them, they helped mold me. The people in our neighborhood helped mold me. My family has lifted me up. My father, my grandfather was instrumental. So it's just been a melting pot of people that I have to say supported me and allowed me to grow and prosper and be who I am.
Tell me about Miss Karen Jenkins, as a mom and a wife.
As a mom, I am an unconditional love mom. I am for my kids, with my kids. I was at the school so much that I think some people still think I work at Ridgeview. And even when they were kids, I would drop them off, and if the teacher didn't come or they were out, I was a sub until they got there. I have always been engaged in my kids' life. I've always wanted to be there for them. They have always been, outside of my husband, the most important thing in my life. And I needed them to know that.
I'd love to get your thoughts on generational wealth and financial literacy and how we can build both.
When we talk about financial literacy, that is the first thing that we have to do to start creating generational wealth, because if you don't know the rules of the game, you don't know how to play it. And the companies out there and other people, their goal is to separate you from your money. And for me, it's not how much you make, because I'll tell you, when I was doing that foreclosure process and counseling families, I had doctors, lawyers, I had people making $200,000 a year, but they were spending $215,000 a year. I had people that were making $40,000 a year that were spending, $45,000 a year. So it's not how much money you make, it's how much of your money that you make that you actually get to keep for yourself. I'm a believer that as I grow and as I learn and as I prosper and accomplish things, I have to leave the door open for other people to come through.
Classic designs, bright colors, timeless pieces. Couple that with the names of Michelle Obama, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Beyonce, and the next name you're likely to hear will be that of designer Sergio Hudson. The Fairfield County native has made a name for himself on runways, at award shows, and in boardrooms. Today, we're taking a seat at his design table. So here we go. Kamala Harris, Michelle Obama, Beyonce, Issa Rae, Jennifer Lopez, Serena Williams, Toni Braxton, Stephanie Mills, Kerry Washington, Blake Lively, Iman, Wanda Sykes, Nia Long, Lupita Nyong'o, Mary J. Blige, Queen Latifah, Tracy Ellis Ross.
Oh. I've never heard somebody do that. Wow.
Was there a moment, Sergio, that you said to yourself, I think I might have made it?
I will say this, I still have not had that moment where I'm like, I know I made it. But one of those moments were when I dressed Mrs. Obama for inauguration. Not actually when I dressed her, because I was just working and doing it, but I think I told the story to you before. I got off of the plane, leaving DC, going to Atlanta. We stopped over in Philly, and that's when the inauguration was happening. I went into that lounge. I saw her walk out through those doors like everybody else did at the exact same time. And I was like, wow, she looks really good. And I forgot that I had made what she was wearing. And at that moment, I knew it was different. I knew it was a change. I knew, okay, now I can really begin. So I feel like that was my start. Like I was at the airport the other day and I saw this woman walk by me in a full Sergio Hudson outfit. And to me, that was the most rewarding thing I ever saw in my life, because it was just like, wow, like people are really connected to this. Like, and you know, my clothes aren't cheap. So I was just like, she actually spent the amount of that money on that suit to wear it. And she was, you know, obviously going to some business meeting or something and she had to look a certain way. She got right off the plane. I knew what she was doing. I saw her and she was leaving the airport to go to a meeting. I knew it. And I was like, wow, that's what I intended that for. You know, you dream about these type of things, but when they actually happen, it doesn't feel exactly how you think it's gonna feel. So, you know, sometimes I forget, honestly, and then you get reminded, you know, you get a text from somebody, I love the vice president in your dress, or, oh my God, Beyonce looks so good. And you're like, oh yeah, I did dress Beyonce.
When you say Sergio Hudson fashion, you immediately think of the best and the brightest. And I mean the best fabrics, the brightest colors. But a lot of people who are watching may not know that you're just a young man from Ridgeway, South Carolina, from Fairfield County.
Absolutely.
And you're true to that every day.
Every day.
What does it mean to be from Fairfield County and be on this level?
I mean, it shaped who I am as a person. I'm a very country boy, but a very cultured boy at the same time. So it's kind of like I always had the best of both worlds.
What keeps you humble?
My bills.
It keeps us all humble. When you think about the challenges that you've seen, what were those times like?
You know, I don't focus on those so much, because it was always a process that I knew I had to go through to get to where I was trying to go. When you think about the times when you either buy a yard of fabric or you eat out, you know what I mean? It's like it was literally those times that sometimes, so those build you and make you who you are. I knew I was destined to do this probably at about 5 or 6, because that's when I started picking out like my mom and my sister's clothes and telling them, you know, wear this with this. And it would be like, oh wow, like they actually would listen to me and they would get compliments. And that's how I knew, you know, from that young age, okay, this is a talent, this is something I need to pursue. And my parents kind of cultivated that.
Are you usually the only black man in the room?
When it comes to other designers, yeah, it's normally me. My team is pretty much 90% black. So I have, you know, my business partner is black, my whole PR team is black, you know, so all of my designers that work with me are black. I have to open doors for people that look like me, and I have to make it normal for a black person to design clothes for the First Lady, for the Vice President, you know, for Beyonce. Like, these things have to become common in order for them not to be singled out, because at the end of the day, I don't want to just be a black designer. I just want to be a designer. All I need is a sewing machine and a table, and I can still have a collection. I think I was in the last crew of people that went to design school that actually had to learn the process of making a pattern, making a dress without a computer. When we were presented with the option to do the Target collection, I took it as an opportunity to give something back to those people who have always supported me. You don't just arrive here alone without no support. So, you know, my community, my family, you know, all of those people that growing up that always told me, oh, you're gonna be great one day, you're gonna do this and do that. Create your own seat, create your own room, create a place for you to be, because it might not be there for you.